Hello, and good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in the world, from the IATEFL YLTSIG committee. I am Joan Kang Shin, the online events coordinator, and I'm delighted to welcome Letizia Cinganotto, who is our September webinar speaker. Letizia is delivering the second webinar of our special series in collaboration with the Creativity Group. This series will feature until the end of 2018, and you can find out more about the C Group by visiting the website, which I'm going to put the link right here in the chat box. Letizia has a PhD in linguistics, is a researcher at the National Educational Research Institute in Italy, and is a member of various committee boards and working groups on languages and on CLIL, both at the national and international level. She has presented papers and published articles and chapters in peer-reviewed journals, and recently a volume in Italian on CLIL and classroom interaction. We are so thrilled to have her as our webinar speaker today. So without further ado, over to you, Letizia.
Thank you for this nice introduction, and I'm very happy to be here today. I'm grateful to IATEFL and to our wonderful C group. I can see Malu here. It's a really wonderful opportunity to be a speaker today, so thank you very much. So I'm going to talk about CLIL and learning technologies for a creative learning environment. So first of all, I would like to ask our participants today which school level they teach. So if primary, pre-primary, lower secondary, upper secondary, or university. So just a couple of seconds to, yes, to vote. Thank you very much. And start thinking about CLIL. If you have heard of it, I guess yes, or probably you have another name in your country, because I've seen someone from India, and so you were introducing yourself. So maybe you have different acronym for CLIL, which is the main topic of this webinar. So can see half primary, pre-primary, and half lower secondary, and someone from university as well. Okay. Thank you very much. Yes, okay. So let's start thinking about this acronym. CLIL stands for Content and Language Integrated Learning. So would you like to briefly write in the chat if you've heard of CLIL, if you use it, if you implement it, if you have tried it, if you have another name in your country, and I mean, what is your experience with that? And then we be having a look at the chat while speaking and try to say, I can see some Italian colleagues here, so very happy, and I'm sure they know what CLIL in Italy is. I'm going to briefly say something about that as well. Okay. So this is the definition that comes from the inventor of the CLIL acronym. We have an experience from Brazil. Cinzia, thank you very much. Using a soft CLIL approach. We use CLIL here in Brazil. So CLIL is very popular acronym, not only in Italy and in Europe. In Italy, we took the Anglo-Saxon, of course, acronym, but it's becoming more and more popular all over the world. So CLIL is, the most popular. But we have some other acronyms that are, for example, ENIL in France, and some other in other countries. So this is a definition by David Marsh, the inventor of the CLIL acronym. and in dual-focused educational context in which an additional language, and that's not usually the first language of the learners involved, is used as a medium in the teaching and learning of non-language content. So it refers to the learning and teaching of subject content, humanistic subjects or scientific subjects in a foreign language. And the important thing is that the two objectives of the lesson, of the learning pathway, so the content and the language, so the development of language competence, are just the same importance, so are equally balanced. And CLIL is a sort of train in motion, we call it, because it's a revolution, especially in Italy, but I mean in a lot of countries where they are experimenting it. And the revolution involves any teacher in the class, in particular the language teacher and the subject teacher that we in Italy call the DNL teacher or non-linguistic subject teacher. But one of the main strengths of CLIL in Italy, and that we are recommending, is the team CLIL. So the cooperation between the language teacher and the subject teachers, because in this way we have synergies, we have an exchange of expertise, of background, experiences, and of course it will be a success if language teacher and subject teacher can cooperate in an effective way. So just very briefly, CLIL in Europe, as I said, it's becoming more and more popular all over Europe, as this latest report from YLTSIG, Key Data on Teacher Languages at School in Europe 2017, highlights. Yes, quite all over Europe. And Italy has been highlighted by the European Commission and by YLTSIG as case study, as you can see here, and also in the latest recommendation from the European Commission to the Council of Europe, because it's CLIL for all, as you can see from the title, CLIL for all in upper secondary education. Because since 2010 in Italy, CLIL has been mandatory in upper secondary school education, in all upper secondary schools, and it's a very democratic process, CLIL for all. So it's not important their level of competence or any other requirements, but we just deliver CLIL to any students, in particular in the last year of upper secondary schools. And as I said, this is the proposal for a council recommendation on languages, and CLIL in Italy has been highlighted as well, and also one of my publications has been mentioned in the recommendation. So CLIL is a sort of revolution, as I said, and it involves all the stakeholders in the school community, as you can see from this very nice picture from Peter Meisto, another guru of CLIL, and requires a growth mindset, an open mindset. So just mindset that is somehow ready to be open and to innovate, to change, and to be creative. And that is what I'm going to show you, what I would like to highlight, how to be creative in a CLIL classroom. So CLIL and innovation is very CLIL is highlighted by a lot by the European Commission and in a wide range of documents as an innovative way to foster language competencies, and at the same time, of course, to teach subjects so in a new way, because it's an interactive approach with a lot of learning by doing activities, and putting the student at the center of the learning process. There's a very strong focus on innovation and creativity. These are the pillars of CLIL. I'm going very quickly on that. Of course, if you want to learn more, I can give you all the references. The pillars, for example, the so-called 4Cs framework by Jo Coyle, stating that the pillars of CLIL are cognition, content, communication, and culture. Culture is in the background, and then the content, which is delivered through foreign language. Communication, because you communicate, of course, in foreign language, you communicate about content. So you talk about history, about science, and what else? And cognition, because you activate your thinking skills. And in particular, you can have with CLIL the sort of switch from from lower order thinking skills. So you can see here in the graph on an image on top right. So LATs, lower order thinking skills, and HATs, higher order thinking skills, because you have to think and you have to talk about academic things. So you have to elaborate, you have to connect information, and then receive input, and then of course produce output, and this requires higher order thinking skills. At the same time, you have with CLIL a switch from basic interpersonal communication skills, so BICS, and I'm referring to Cummins here, to CALP, cognitive academic language proficiency, because you don't only talk about your general and daily life communication. So you just, with BICS, basic interpersonal communication skills, you use your language competence to talk about your families, your daily life, and so on. With CALP, so cognitive academic language proficiency, you use your language proficiency to talk about an academic subject, to talk about history, about science. And so, of course, the level of competence in the foreign language must be higher. And that's why CLIL fosters, in a very innovative way, also the development of your language competence. But I'm going quite quickly. And yes, of course, Cinzia can give you all the references and all the websites and books that are so many. If you want to, I'm very happy there's interest in this research, which is one of my main research areas. Scaffolding is another keyword in CLIL, because and it's connected to the zone of proximal development, because the learner needs some help from the teacher, sometimes from his or her peers, because of course the level of complexity is double, because there's a content and sometimes new content. You can imagine when you have to study maths, and so new concepts in maths, and so you have the complexity of the topic, but you also have the complexity of the language, because maybe you have to develop and you have to acquire to specific language areas, for example, which are relevant to that specific topic. And so scaffolding is essential, because the teacher has to plan the sort of guide, step by step, both on content area and on language area, so that the teacher can guide the student in acquire a gradual autonomy in his or her learning pathway. So how you can be creative with CLIL? As I said, CLIL means to be innovative and to be creative, to be open-minded. And I'm going to show you some examples of how you can be creative and innovative in a CLIL environment. So I'm going to refer to some ideas, some inputs, and in particular, I'm going to mention some strategies and methods that you could use. I'm referring to technologies, I'm referring to spaces, and to visuals. So, as far as strategies and methods are concerned, I'm referring to this study, which is now very popular, by John Hattie in Melbourne, who made a very interesting ranking of all the strategies and methods that could lead our students to deep learning and visible learning, with a different level of impact that this particular strategy can have. So starting from sort of a very passive involvement to a very active and interactive one. So you have maybe here you can see something more. The the strategies that are around the green bar are all the best, let's say, in a sense that they can have the high impact on deep learning. So mastery learning, teaching problem solving, spaced practice, reciprocal teaching, feedback, metacognition, note-taking, direct instruction, concept mapping, worked examples. So if you use one of these strategies, you have more probability to reach deep learning in your students and to involve them in a very active way. And that's what John Hattie says, of course, not me. So you could be creative in your CLIL learning environment from input to output. So all the following all the steps of a teaching and learning process, starting from the input that you give your students, which of course, according to Krashen, must be comprehensible input, and so the reasonable level just a little bit more challenging, so that we can reach this zone of proximal development. And so till the final stage, which is the output, which students' output, that of course must be comprehensible as well. And you can use a wide range of strategies, and you can see here, for example, learning by doing, which is essential. We already said that. Then a cooperative learning. In fact, CLIL takes advantage of a lot of cooperative activities, cooperative learning activities, also peer learning, peer tutoring, project-based learning, and phenomenon-based learning, which is very popular in Finland, for example, and David Marsh is from Finland and is encouraging the use of phenomenon-based learning for CLIL. And so you can think of all these methods that I'm sure you are familiar with, and of course this could be really, really effective for CLIL. I'm mentioning some other ideas, some other teaching strategies that are becoming very, very popular in Italy, and in particular I'm involved in a research project that is highlighting innovation at different levels in Italian schools, trying to enhance innovation and make it spread all over the country, identifying some sort of good practices. And one of these teaching strategies that of course could be helpful for CLIL is debate. Debate, of course, is not Italian. I mean, it's classical in Latin and the Latin and Greek origins, but has been, as a teaching experience, a teaching method has been brought from Anglo-Saxon, and in particular, we are learning a lot from English-speaking Union in UK. And as you can see, debate can help. First of all, can help CLIL, because you have students debate, discuss some claims that have been launched by the teacher that could be on any topic, so any subject, so curricular or extracurricular topics. And this claim launched by the teacher is the topic to be discussed, and so you have pro and cons, and then you have the teams, the different teams have to discuss, have to work and to look for information, maybe using the internet beforehand, so before the real performance. And then when they are during the performance, they have to speak. So you have a strong focus on public speaking, and think about using a foreign language for public speaking, for expressing their own opinions and trying to defend their position. And there are a lot of thinking skills, but also transversal skills that are fostered through debate. And you can see here how creative you can be using debate. You can use an informal setting, like this teacher, this Italian teacher in primary school, and you see here students are warming up with a game to prepare for public speaking in English, and so of course creativity is in the air. In secondary school, can be a little bit more elaborated. You can have some sort of scenario, and you see a little bit more formal setting. It depends on the school, but and of course with CLIL in secondary school, you can talk about also curricular topics. You can talk about law. You can talk about science or philosophy. So think about this topic that could be philosophy, for example, in English or in French is a good example of CLIL, and debate can be very helpful in this. E-debate is another example, and a sort of a particular model that uses the technology. So it's a distance debate. So here is an example of e-debate between two different schools in two different parts of Italy, and thanks to the internet, just in Skype, they could debate from one school to another in two different cities. Some other examples how you can be creative with CLIL spaces. You can make a very creative, a very divergent and unconventional use of your space, and you can see here a lot of examples. Of course, these are not not Italian. Maybe we have in some of our highlighted schools we have some examples of this, but of course we are studying, and in our institute there's a research group just studying this particular aspect in some other countries in Europe to learn from them. So a very conventional use of the space of the furniture can help be creative and, of course, to deliver your content in foreign language in a very effective way. As you can read here, matching structures and spaces of learning, the impact of space on behavioral, affective, and cognitive learning, which is the title of this book, and it's really the sense of the importance of of space on from the holistic point of view on the student development. Here's a very informal learning space, and why in this other one is another methodology that we brought to Italy from the States, from Massachusetts Institute of Technology in Boston, which is called TEAL, Technology Enhanced Active Learning, and it was created by Professor John Mansky at MIT, in particular for physics at university. And in our schools, we are experimenting it not only for physics, scientific subjects, but also for humanistic subjects. And once again, there's an unconventional setting, because we have round tables with groups and mobile devices in the center. Students receive some inputs from the teacher. They have to discuss, to look for information, and then to share their work in groups at the beginning through the overprojector, the group overprojector that you can see. There are different points of projection. And then there's a final collective, let's say, moment of sharing with the teacher, and with teacher is mainly a facilitator. Imagine all these activities in a foreign language, and so if you do all this science or physics or some other philosophy or what else in English through this particular system, to this particular setting, and through cooperative learning, group learning, and so the teacher acting as facilitator and collecting the ideas from the different groups, and then so sharing and giving feedback and so on. So imagine how powerful all this may be. So other examples of CLIL, creative CLIL environment, of course, technologies. We cannot afford not to be part of the digital era. So this is just our, our era. We are always immersed in technologies, and our learning environments at school are always sort of hybrid, overlapping physical and virtual spaces, flowing into and out of each other, tied together by new technologies. So I guess that in all your schools we may have different use of the technologies. So some lessons in presence, of course, but more or less technologies are have entered your classes, I guess. But maybe you can write something about that and write your experience in the use of technologies in your schools. It depends, of course, maybe schools in Italy as well, which are better equipped, some others less, but in somehow also depending on the teacher, they encourage the use of clouds, for example, or some other tools, or just Web 2.0 tools, and it's a way to involve our students and to be creative at the same time, and you also have strong impact on the learning outcomes, of course. So technologies is just because our students are screenagers, they are always exposed to the screen, and yeah, we have some young learners. Just we know we can see from our kids, and they start using technologies. Of course, the importance of the teacher and the adult to guide them to become wise user of technologies, as Mark Briskin said. It's essential, but yes, we have a lot of technology in Brazil as well, very good. And Google Education Rooms, Cinta said, with virtual and augmented reality, interactive whiteboard, okay, very good. So technology is now the norm, we can say that the regular I mean, it's different declination, different use, but it's more or less common. The European Commission itself recommends the use of technologies for language learning and CLIL in this report from 2014, where the European Commission just encouraged the use and makes a lot of examples of projects using learning technologies for language learning and CLIL. And so this is not only fashion, let's say, but it's coming from recommendation coming from the European Commission, and not only for engagement and involvement, but also because it's effective in the students' learning outcomes. Here is a project from the ECML, the European Centre for Modern Languages in Graz, led by Do Coyle, Oliver Meyer, among the biggest guru of CLIL. And the project is pluraliteracy, teaching for learning, and it's the evolution of the CLIL model, the 4Cs CLIL model, aiming once again at deep learning. So our students' deep learning, trying to develop their pluraliteracy, so their literacy in a wide range of aspects, because in our 21st century we know that our students have to develop a wide range, very wide range of competencies, of skills and literacies, and digital is one of them, of course. And as a part of this project, you see here learnscaping, designing next generation environments for pluraliteracy's growth. So you have this focus on the digital book, digital materials, and the digital future textbooks are history, as Maya said. We have here a smart board in Burundi English School. Thank you very much. So as we can see, technologies all over the world. Okay. And so in this project, always part of rural literacy project, this study has compared different web tools. I'm not going to mention, of course, all of them, but because there are so many, and if you're interested, of course, I can then send you all the material, the links, references, and also because as you know, internet is continuously evolving. So tomorrow you will find new tools, and the day tomorrow again. So the ones that I'm mentioning today, maybe all tomorrow. And but here you have some examples of the added value of ICT in your learning environment, some simple applications, and how you can, with these applications, you can reach some certain objectives like co-constructing knowledge and online support, sharing knowledge, practice, promoting autonomy, motivating students, feedback, and reflection. So this is a comparative study that has been done to highlight some of the most common web apps and tools, and how you can reach these objectives with your students. So highlighting the added value of ICT for these particular purposes. Of course, flipped classroom. Flipped classroom is based on technologies, but not only, but you have a certain amount of use of technologies. And with flipped classroom, you can be creative. You can plan a very dynamic CLIL lesson, and you can make a very flexible use of your time and of your lesson itself. Maybe you can write in chat if you experienced flipped classroom, if you have tried it, and if you have heard of it, or I guess yes, but maybe if you have any experience about that. So it means that you can somehow flip the idea, the format of the lesson, because everything starts home with content that you assign your students. That could be videos or digital content, and so through a platform, a website, or whatever. And then, so students home start getting the basic concept. So let's say the delivery of the lecture, the traditional lecture, top down, doesn't happen in class anymore, but it's the student. It's up to the student to just watch the videos, or maybe do something read something, or maybe some activities online. And then when they go to the class, they are more or less, they start from some pre-knowledge that they have on that particular topic, and during the lesson, with the help of the teacher and with other peer-to-peer activities, or group work activities, project-based learning, or what else, they can really work on those topics, and they can share the knowledge that they previously acquired at home. They can get reinforced by the teachers and by their peers. They can concretely do something with their knowledge, so they don't just passively receive knowledge from their teacher, but they already have their knowledge beforehand. So they are in the class, they are ready to do something with that knowledge, and to create some digital products, to talk about that. So just be active, be the protagonist. And of course, this is with CLIL the main aim, because they have to use the language in a very active, in a very meaningful way. And that is important, because during a CLIL lesson, you cannot talk about the grammar rule, for example. You cannot talk about, meta-reflection, meta-linguistic reflection can be a part, maybe a separate part of your CLIL lesson, but not the main focus, because the main focus is the integration and the use of the language for communicating and talking about something which is real, which is meaningful, like science, like history, or what else. So with CLIL, you can have you can use a lot of repositories, and you can build up. And as I said, if you want, I can give you all the links to these repositories, where you can find a lot of lessons, materials on different topics. In some cases, also different languages. In CLIL Store, for example, you can find a plurilingual repository where students can, teachers can look for they can search with this specific filter the language they want, the level of competence, and the topic they want to work on, and so they can have a wide range of lessons uploaded by other teachers. So it's sort of wiki, a sort of bottom up repository which is still live, still active. So you can not only download but also upload yours if you want. With TikTok, for example, I don't know if you're familiar with TikTok. TikTok is wonderful, especially for young learners. You can find a wide range of topics in especially science and different a wide range of themes related to science in particular, but it's very nice because children can watch videos, can play games and interactive activities, and of course it's very valuable, and it also received reward from the British Council. Then with Khan Academy, I guess you're familiar with it. You find videos and materials on a wide range of topics, with starting from video clips when there's a teacher speaking, but at the same time drawing in a sort of blackboard, interactive blackboard, and then you can also make quizzes, exercises related to that particular topic. So it's very, a complete lesson, complete module. With you can see the development of the module starting from one or more videos, and then different activities, assessment, self-assessment, and so on. So it's, everything there, and so you can just, if you can just maybe assign some videos from Khan Academy that you selected, because of course you cannot, and this is what happens always when you use, of course, internet, you cannot leave your students alone, but you have to direct them and give them a particular link to that video, to that activities. They can do home, and then in class they will talk about them, they will share their ideas and their knowledge with their peers, they will do something practical with them, or maybe some other quizzes and what else. Marcia, you were TikTok, just a coincidence. Well, it's a coincidence, but maybe it's a sort of signal that you really have to try it. And then Learning Apps is another interesting website where you can surf, you can find a lot of lessons, once again interactive. And you can also build your own with quizzes, games, and videos. You can really design with Learning Apps. You are a sort of syllabus designer, because you can design your own pathway in a certain, following the steps that you want, and then you can assign your students. So this is the idea of, but these are just some of the repositories that you can find, but there are so many. And once again, with Learning Apps, you can also choose the level, and so for young learners as well, you find a lot of things, but then you can select your target level. But the same thing with Khan Academy, so generally is a common feature that you find in the majority of the repositories. Then you can use immersive worlds. I just want to spend a couple words about immersive worlds, and in particular because we have in our institute, let's say, a second life, which is called English Edmondo, and English Village is a region, is a land of Edmondo, which is a sort of second life where we can be really creative. Our teachers can go there with their students. You see the avatars, so you can have students here play games in English, and board games or some other action games built by the teachers themselves, or by the students. It depends their level their abilities or their familiarity with that particular building scripts and so on. We deliver courses. Our institute deliver courses to the teachers to get familiar with the platform, and because it's our own platform, educational platform, only for schools, Italian schools. So we can also allow students and teachers from other countries, but also for education, only for educational purposes. Consider Second Life with all the problems that have been mentioned about identity and so on, because you don't know who can be there behind the avatar. But here in our Second Life, in our Edmondo, you know who is there, because it's everything safe and everything, you know, it's meshed with our school database. So only teachers and students and researchers and it's here in Edmondo, in English Village, you can have a good example of creativity in your CLIL classroom, because we had a gallery where teachers leave their games. The games is a game-based learning activity-based, basically. So. And we had our consultant that you may be familiar, because she's IATEFL, member IATEFL, and very active, is IATEFL, and also some other experts, international experts, helping us with our project. And so in this gallery, the teachers can build their games with the lesson plan behind the game. I mean, the purpose is the language aims, the content aims, so what they talking about CLIL, so what that particular game is aimed at, with a specific level of competence of the language and so on. And so that in the gallery, every teacher wants to go there with the students, can try, of course, for free, because it's our institute is the research institute of the Ministry of Education, and so they can go there and really be creative with their students and play games or build up new games, and you know, have fun with CLIL in this world. So this is another example of technologies. Then I would like to I would like you to write maybe something about immersive worlds, if you have experience about immersive worlds, or something like Second Life or some other open themes, if you are familiar with this, because it's very popular, even if, I mean, in Italy we have this particular let's say, secure and exclusive world, but there are so many open themes that may be a challenge. None of them. Okay, Cinzia, thank you. Okay, some other is visual. Some other input is visual. I was talking about visual. I was talking about literacies. I was talking about how important it is nowadays to foster our students' pluriliteracy, the project, the ESML project I was mentioning, the 21st century skills and literacy. So it's not enough for our students to be able to speak their mother tongue, one or more, hopefully, foreign languages, and to maybe to calculate and so on. But of course, they have to develop a wide range of other literacies to be competent and to be able to understand all the multiple messages coming from our multimedia, multimodal world. So visual is very important, visual literacy. So how to educate our students to make the best from visual inputs they receive, and they can, of course, produce. That's why we talk about a visually enhanced classroom. So a class that makes use of visual inputs for learning purposes. So use visuals, images, and other media to teach concept, encourage learners to show what they know through visual imagery, visual literacy instruction, and using a lot of different methods like Sketchnotes, mind maps, and graphic organizers. So trying to make their knowledge visible somehow, no? So visible, sort of visible learning, making the learning visible. In this way, you can help them really master this knowledge and so reach deep learning. Just some examples with about these visual aids, and once again, here you have some examples taken from a MOOC that we deliver with a colleague of mine, Daniela Bucurullo, as a part of EVO, Electronic Village Online, which is TESOL International, is a free MOOC that every year at the beginning of January is delivered through this network, this community of practice, which is called EVO. And our course is CLIL. If you're interested, you can join us in January. It's free. It's a part of EVO International. It's a session, one of the sessions delivered by EVO, and it's 5 weeks, 5-week MOOC, of course, completely free and completely online. We work with CLIL, we work with CLIL and technologies and with tools that can be useful for a wide range of purposes. Like this one, for example, you have a graphic organizer, so imagine how easy it can be for a learner to memorize, to have this, to remember this through this visual impact. Some bit of knowledge that could be maybe more difficult in another way. Same thing for diagrams and tables. So you can have a lot of tools and you can help your students have the lessons developing all the different senses in sort of multimodal lessons. Maps with mind maps, concept mapping. If you remember, concept mapping is one of the strategies highlighted by John Hattie as one of the strategies with higher impact on deep learning. When you organize this sort of activities, when you guide them, make maps of their concept, of their knowledge, of course they can easily anchor them. They can easily remember in their long-term memory, and they can use it. It's really a real competence. We work in Italy a lot on competence-based learning, trying to switch from content-based learning and so knowledge, just bits of knowledge that could be short-term, could be maybe useful for that particular oral test that a student must take, but then could be just easily forgotten. So on the contrary, we are pushing our teachers, our schools towards competence-based learning. So just trying to live out the boundaries of the program, of of course they have national guidelines of the different areas, the different topics to develop. But apart from that, the strong focus is on the student's competence, how the student can be competent in using that knowledge to do something, to create something new, to be critical and give their own critical point of view, their critical perspective on that topic. So to become a 21st century and a European and a global, because now a strong focus is on global competencies as well. And mind mapping can really help. Mapping all this knowledge and use them as to become competent. Clouds is another tool that can help make this sort of cloud very nice, very colorful. There are a lot of tools where you can put different words, and according to the number of occurrences you have in the middle, in the center, the biggest one, and the biggest word is the most popular. And you have tools like Mentimeter that allow you to do this in synchronous live with your students. So imagine you have your students there, and you say, what does innovation, what does creativity, what does CLIL mean for you? And then they just respond at the same time, and then through their smartphone, through their computer, what else? And then you have in synchronous the feedback like this on your board, and you can have you can start a lot of activities through starting from Vista Cloud. Imagine working with lexicon, with with vocabulary to expand their vocabulary, or to work with text, with genres, and so on. This is Cloud was collected at the end of one of CLIL edition, and we asked our participants what CLIL was meant for them, and there was innovation was the keyword, the best, the most popular keyword. Padlet, I'm sure you're familiar with Padlet. You can collect, this you see one of Padlet CLIL, and you can have a source of diary with, visual, strong impact on visual, but you can also have text in Padlet. It's a wall, a digital wall where you can collect, and you have your students collect their thoughts, their pictures, their also videos, because it's multimedia as well. And so it's a sort of board, a digital board that could be portfolio, could be a memory of their experience, but any useful. And of course, you can build up a clear lesson on this Padlet. Sketchnote is another visual aid that you can see, you can use. It seems like you are just taking notes, digital notes, and you have this visual, very nice visual impact, and at the same time you can fix some certain concept and remember them, and so you have digital and multimedia note-taking activity. Infographics is another important, and you'll explore. If you want to learn more, you can, if you register our CLIL, you can learn more about all these things. And Malu is one of our guest speaker in CLIL. She's been with us in all the editions, and she is always one of our godmother. And so it is a infographics. A lot of tools help you create this, very powerful and effective images, where you can, of course, import. You can have them students create as digital response, as a final output of their work. Cartoons and comics is another way of working with CLIL in a creative way. There are a lot of tools where you can create your own cartoon. You can put your the text, the scripts, and then so the students can have fun, drawing them, or selecting maybe the pictures, maybe their ideal features, and give them voice, even if written, and so they can be creative. They can invent their story, and there could be a CLIL story on history, on imagine the history, the particular a cartoon inspired to a particular historical period in a foreign language, and so just reconstructing the scene, and what else. As far as tools, if you have is concerned, if you want to have a look at this repository, I've been going very quickly, but there are so many tools that you can use, and as I said, they can be old today, tomorrow would be today's ones will be old tomorrow. But in this project, you want to have a look at this repository. It's a project by ECML, the European Center for Modern Languages in Graz, which is the organization from the Council of Europe working on languages. Here you can have, you can select with the filter, you can select your specific aim. So if you want, for example, to work on listening, to reading, on vocabulary, on grammar, and then you'll have as a result, the website will give you a selection of tools that you can use for that particular purpose. So, and it's of course language learning oriented. This is CLIL that we was talking about. This is the poster from the edition 2017, and then we had also 2018, and in January we'll have the new one. So looking forward to meeting you there. Just a couple of them, I'm rushing towards the end, as some suggestion, in particular this article that you can find. I've published a book but it's in Italian on CLIL. This one is on, this is an article that you can find that I wrote on the School Education Gateway, the platform from the European Commission that has a lot of resources. I strongly recommend you because there's a wide range of resources on different topics, and there's a database if you want to look for a partner school in another country, or you want to maybe visit another school or another or study abroad. There's a database with all the different opportunities, so it's very powerful. That's not so common, but of course is I mean, it's also popular among teachers, but if you want to have a look at it, you can find a lot of inputs. And of course, it's a European Commission, but inputs and ideas can be valuable all over the world. So in Brazil as well, and in Burundi and wherever. And as far as always talking about MOOC, you have this on the same platform, School Education Gateway. This course with this MOOC, which is ongoing now, is called Embracing Language Diversity in Your Classroom. And it's part of the Teacher Academy, so once again promoted by the European Commission. I'm one of the moderators of this MOOC, and it's ongoing now. It was it started on 24th of September, so just this month, last Monday, and it will go on till the end of October. So registration are still open. If you want, you can join us. You can have materials and videos and webinars and different topics, always related to language learning, language diversity, and CLIL. And different inputs and ideas on whatever. Then this is just my final slide, and with my email, and with this provocative question. What I want to know, I hope that I gave you interesting, new inputs and new ideas that could be helpful in your schools, in your teaching experience. But yes, what I want to know. So if you have questions, I'll be happy to answer. Of course, you can write me an email, and of course ask me any questions by email. And if you want references and links and ideas about the web tools I mentioned, I can send you by email. But now I think we have a couple of minutes left. If you want to write some questions in the chat, I'll be happy to answer. Thank you very much for your attention. Okay, so Jane says that tech tools, great tech tools, yeah, technologies can help a lot. We were trying to teach music and physical education in English for CLIL, but the classes don't seem to work well for language learning purposes. Well, it depends on what you mean that they are not seem not to work well for language learning. Music and physical education are really, good choices for Jane. Where are you based in which country? But I guess that for physical education, for physical education, we have a lot of teachers in Italy working with CLIL physical education, because they maybe give instructions in the games, or the pathways of the activities that the students have to perform. They give instructions in English, for example, and in this way you have a direct response, a direct feedback, and because as we said, for CLIL, the use of language must be meaningful, and that's why when you give your students in English, consider we are in Italy, so CLIL in Italy is the majority of the times in English. If you give in English instructions of a game, and they can apply, they can of course understand the instructions and put them in action, it means that you are doing a very effective CLIL, and as far as receptive skills, first of all, but then of course it would be a very meaningful learning in general. Okay, thank you, Malu. It was very nice opportunity. I was honored to be here with you, and I thank you, thank our participants for being here. And of course, Joan, thank you for assisting me, for supporting me during all the webinar. Thank you very
Yes,
much.
thank you so much. So Letizia, thank you for your webinar with all these great ideas for CLIL and educational technologies. We hope that you all enjoyed today's YLTSIG C Group webinar. And I'd like to say, please don't miss the next webinar in the series on the 20th of October. It's called Gesture in the Classroom by Mike Bilbrough. Keep an eye on the SIG social media channels in early October for the time and other details. And finally, I'd like to announce following the success of the YLTSIG's inaugural web conference in 2017, the committee has decided to make the web conference an annual feature of our online events calendar. So this year's nonstop 24-hour web conference themed around the YLT world in 24 hours. It will be on Sunday, the 4th of November, and will feature 30 speakers, each giving 30-minute talks representing YLELT from 30 different countries. The speaker lineup reflects most regions, including the Americas, Europe, Central and South Asia, East Asia, the Middle East and North Africa, and Sub-Saharan Africa. The web conference will be open to the public, and as the YLTSIG Adobe Connect Room hosts 500 delegates, you can invite all of your colleagues. So I'm delighted to share today the fantastic global speaker lineup and the countries they are representing. And so here they are, and you can see them on your screen. Okay, so let me give a final thanks to Letizia. I hope you enjoyed the webinar as well. I think everyone here enjoyed it and got some great new ideas for CLIL and learning technologies. And so with that, I will wish you all farewell and have a lovely day or a lovely evening. Bye-bye.